My name is Shannon Nix. I'm 20 years old from Mississauga, Ontario. I'm studying criminology with a concentration in law, a minor in sociology, and my concussion changed my life. Hockey's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. From ages 4 to 19, I docked more hours in a rink than I did my own house. Making the Ravens varsity women's hockey team was something that I knew I wanted, and I was put on the roster at the beginning of my first year. I was prepared to live the next 5 years of my life in the ice house, revolving around practice hours, games, and traveling with my team. But the best made plans are easiest to ruin. I dedicated years of my life to making a team that I never got to play for. 55 minutes into the first game of our preseason, I collided with another player just above the blue line. The world went white and my whole life changed. But what defines us is how we rise after falling. The issue with concussions is that there's no specific timeline for recovery, but there is an invisible line that determines if the symptoms will fade and life will resume as it was, or if they will stay, become permanent, and force a person to change everything about themselves. I can't remember specifically when I crossed that line, but I do remember that I knew it was happening well before it was made official. It's been 2 years since my concussion, and I still feel repercussions from it every day. It's my new way of living, and I've become comfortable with it. People ask if I'm feeling better, and the answer is yes. My initial symptoms were so severe. I was locked in my dorm room, trying to lay still enough to get the pounding in my head to stop. But I can go outside now. I can read now, and I can hold a conversation without stuttering. These limitations my concussion posed on me were temporary, but it wasn't easy to see that when I was in the middle of it all. The world was just happening around me, and I was sitting on my floor at 2 a.m. trying to stop the spinning. It was hard to see my progression in terms of healing because the entire process was under such a microscope. I feel like that was one of the biggest contributors to the frustration that I felt, because I would miss celebrating the small success of reading for 5 minutes by being so obsessed with the fact that I still couldn't play hockey. I still had headaches, and I was still categorized as concussed. There was a day when I walked to the 4th floor of my residence building, swiped my access card for 20 minutes without getting in, and then remembered that I lived on the 2nd floor. I had just forgotten, and looking back now, it's funny, but scary to think that at one point I was actually that bad. The progress that people have with concussions is really only seen in the bigger picture. Months passed from my initial hit, and eventually my symptoms began to feel like normal. I forgot what it was like to not have a headache, be dizzy, or feel confused. But I think that after such a long period of time with exposure to feeling so many things in such an extreme way, the numbness starting to take over was a little bit comforting. There was a time when I thought it would be easier to not wake up, rather than wake up and deal with the severity of my symptoms. Looking back now, there's a 3-month gap in my memory, but I think that that's just my own body's way of self-preservation. Blocking out the worst of my symptoms was my mind's way of protecting itself and pushing me forwards. I worked for my recovery, and I took all of the steps to better the odds of returning to play. I built myself a support network to the best of my ability, but none of this changed the fact that I still hadn't put on my equipment and represented the Ravens jersey. My efforts went unanswered each day. I've tried it all: the cranio, athletic therapy, vestibular therapy, chiropractic therapy, doctor's visits, a sports psychologist. Nothing fixed the fact that there was a gaping hole in my life, my mind, and my heart that was originally filled by the game that gave me the concussion in the first place. It didn't make sense that the one thing that was supposed to save me from feeling all of these things was the thing that was ruining my life. Being involved with the team every day was like fake throwing a tennis ball to a golden retriever. Here, I'll show you everything you've ever wanted, but you just can't have it. I thought that involving myself with the environment would give me the ability to still feel like I was involved and connected to the sport, but that backfired and I became even more alienated. That sport used to be my home. And I'd lost every piece of who I thought I was. But I denied that fact, and I stayed as empty as I could for as long as possible. I was never given the opportunity to make decisions about my concussion, and eventually I was told that my injury would be career-ending. But this wasn't a shock, and I knew that it was coming, but there's still something earth-shattering about hearing it out loud. I've adjusted to my situation, I've found a way to make my life work, and I've accommodated for the symptoms that I have. I focus on the things that I can do rather than I can't. I found support that I can relate to, and they can relate to my situation, but still respect the fact that it's individual. Looking back now, the comfort and predictability of a varsity athlete's life is something that a lot of people strive to achieve, but they don't know the toll that it takes on the other aspects of their life. The tunnel vision that comes from living a life revolved around a sport that ends after a set number of minutes, periods, or points is as dangerous as it is reassuring. It's easy to lose who you are when you don't have time to explore the options that make you you. The world that you choose to surround yourself in determines how you see yourself, and I only ever knew myself as a hockey-playing person. I forgot that I was a person who played hockey. My journey post-concussion is about me finding out the different things that make me me, and telling my story is one of them.